بسم الله الرحمن
بسم الله
الرحيم.
الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله على سيدنا Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. This is a claim that many opponents to Islam, some historians who are labeled Orientalist, others who, for whatever reason, um, are opponents to Islam. One of the claims has been that Islam was spread by the sword. And it could be because to some people it's inconceivable that a religious belief and practice could spread so rapidly and cover such a large amount of territory without the idea of forced conversion. Forced conversion is something that you found used a lot in the history of the spread of Christianity. Now, I don't claim that forced conversion is an inherent part of Christianity. I don't, and during my research and talking to a number of people about it, most Christians would claim that it's not an inherent part of the religion of Christianity. However, they do acknowledge that it has happened in history. Most of the explanations I've heard from doctors of Christology and Christianity have said that it was more so a product of the times they were in. And this is how they explain away Charlemagne's conquests, as well as many of the Saxon conquests that happened later in the 1300s. We can move on to the Catholic sending of the Jesuits to many different parts of the area. I mean, it goes on to the Inquisition in Spain, where Jews and Muslims oftentimes were forced to either leave or accept Christianity or at the threat of the sword, right? So we know that this concept is rampant there. What I think happens sometimes with Orientalists and some other people who may have chosen to go the way of atheism and just kind of leaving God altogether is sometimes the issues that they may have had with the Christianity they grew up with, that they got from their parents or that they got from their local church or their king or whatever they lived under. They tend to assume that because the Muslims and the Muslim world were religious, polity or religious society, that they were similar in all of these regards. And I think that's a mistake in scholarship to do. This is if one is sincere. A mistake to make if one is sincere. For those who are insincere, well, then they have a whole different set of problems, that are very personal and that there isn't much we can do, to help. And that brings us to Islam. Islam, you see, flat out claims to not allow either forced conversion nor accept the conversion of one who was forced. We have in the Quran, this is Surah Al-Baqarah, this is 2, ayat verse 256, where Allah Tabaraka Ta'ala says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajim, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, La ikra'a fid din, قد تبين رشدي من الغي فمن يكفر بالطاغوت ويؤمن بالله فقد استمسك. Always had trouble pronouncing that word. فقد استمسك بالعروة الوثقى, which means there shall be no compulsion in the religion. Okay, no forcing anyone in the acceptance of religion. The right course has become clear from the wrong. So whoever disbelieves in a taghut, kind of interesting word to try to translate there, and believes in Allah, one true God, then indeed he has grabbed onto the most trustworthy handhold, right? Most trustworthy handhold, one that is strongest. So this is our belief in terms of, this is what God says about it, that in religion, in terms of the acceptance of it, there's no compulsion. Okay? That our way is to relay the truth as we see it or as it has reached us. So the method of Islam, you go into a particular land, you meet particular people, and you tell them of this message that was sent to the Prophet Muhammad. You make it clear this came by way of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who received it from angel Jibril, and this is a message that was relayed to Jibril from the one true God, the Creator God, Allah. Pretty simple. Once it has been explained to people clearly, and they are able to distinguish this message from the other falsehood or whatever it may be that they believe, if they believe, then they've grasped onto the most trustworthy handhold that will never break. If they reject and decide to do whatever it is they're doing, worship the idols or stick to whatever religion they're in, that's a choice that they have made that they will be held accountable for on the Day of Judgment. This is what Islam says. And this brings us to a little deeper conversation as to why. That was the scriptural part. Now let's go into the whys. The whys. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he had says in a hadith, which are statements of his that have been relayed, heard, written down, memorized, checked for veracity and truthfulness, and now presented by the Muslims to the world. He said, Ad-Din al-Nasiha. Deen, which we described in a previous video, as being one's relationship with God, with Allah. That this relationship with Allah is a nasiha, which is advice, but sincere advice. A nasiha is the word here. And that this sincere advice is from person to person, is to the believers, is to the Muslims, is to the rest of humanity, and so on. So when he says that deen is this, what that means is that the most important aspect of deen is that. Okay? You see, in the Islamic theology, as well as other sciences, I guess theology would be the best way to put it here. When you're talking about the roots of Islam, things at their essence are judged, or things are judged at their essence. Okay, let me put it that way. Okay, so for example, in the physical manifestation of the world, we're these physical bodies that you see. But I think when we talk about the worth of a person and whether or not a person is good or bad, I think we go a little bit deeper. I don't know that people who are considered the most handsome of face or most beautiful of body are considered, the best people because of that. Usually, I think what we do is we go to character, the content of people's character, people's actions, and people's sincerity, and these types of more profound ways of judging people. Do we not? So when we usually talking about people, we're talking about like who they really are, and who they really are is typically the soul. Is it not? You would say that person is a beautiful soul, or that person has a beautiful heart, It's typically the way we would describe good people doing that. So the same thing is with actions. Okay? If someone goes and gives $100 to a certain cause, and another person goes and gives $20 to a certain cause, it's possible that God can be more pleased with the $20 that someone gave than the $100 that someone gave. And this is all based on what we call intentions. The Prophet ﷺ says, "Innama a'malu binniyat wa innama likulli imri'in ma nawa." He said that every action is based on intentions, and everyone is rewarded according to what he intended. Now, how does this relate to conversion? Converting to the religion of Al-Islam, to declare that there is no God but Allah and that Muhammad is his messenger, which is how it's done, is the greatest act that any human being can make, period. It's an act that enters one into the God's, Allah's garden, his fortress, the statement. That's how weighty the statement is. And another time we'll go into the statements of the Prophet concerning this, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, does just merely saying the words without meaning them enter you into the fortress? Like the person who gives, but he doesn't really wish you any well. He's just doing it because, well, it's my job to kind of do it. My mother told me to give you the money, or, I'm working for the government and I just have to hand it out, versus the person who takes his hard-earned wealth, concerned about your state, and also wants to receive a reward from God. Did these people give equally? In the sight of God, not in the sight of people, in the sight of God. To the Muslim, no. Okay? So when we talk about conversion, what I'm saying to you is, in the same way that there is no value to a person who has a bad soul, in the same way that there is no value to the person who declares that God is one and Muhammad is his messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if they don't mean what they're saying, if they don't believe what they're saying, if they don't value what they're saying. You understand? So, in other words, if a Muslim army enters into a place and some valiant but brave soldier puts a knife to one's neck, says, "Believe in Allah or die," and the person declares, "Yes, I believe in Allah and His Messenger," in order to save his life, not only has that Muslim who did that to him actually committed something sinful and something that's fruitless, because God is the one who makes Muslims, not us, not the Muslims. Not only has that happened, but he's also made this person utter a statement that has no value to it, none whatsoever. So we say this to say that, no, forced conversion is not something that is promoted in Islam. It's not something that Islam believes to be of any value or any substance whatsoever. So we don't see a history of it. Don't see a history of it. And it is not supported by what is said in the Quran. You won't find any support for it. You won't find any support for it in the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in logic and basic decency, when we look at what's important and what isn't, and what's valuable and what is not, we will see that There's no value in someone saying that they're Muslim if they don't believe it. So that would be our answer. Thank you. Peace.